All right. Afternoon, everybody. I forgot this yesterday. Are there any bill introductions? Okay, not seeing any. All right. Well, today we are going to have our first hearing, and a couple of different ones. We got the Board of Tax Appeals and the Department of Revenue. So we're going to start with the Board of Tax Appeals, and we have Carday's going to give us analysis, and then we'll have Kristen Wheeler come up and give us a presentation of the Board of Appeals. And if you'll, kind of explain where for sure everybody's going so that it'll make it easier for them to follow you on with this. So you'll want to get this out and okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Sharday Kane. And for the Board of Tax Appeals, I'll go over what this document is since this is our first budget in this committee. So the first page has a overall view of the Board of Tax Appeals budget. It also lays out the definition and mission of the Board of Tax Appeals and what the different divisions are and what they entail on that first page. At the bottom of the first page begins the executive summary, which goes into page 2, giving a budget highlight for fiscal year 2023 and 2024. For this agency, it's about 50% SGF, 50% fee fund. On page 3, the budget summary by category of expenditure can be found, as well as a state general fund expenditures line graph. We will discuss the agency and governor differences that are on that line graph as we progress through the presentation. Page 4 outlines the Court of Tax Appeals filing fee fund and lays out what that looks like and what those fees have been like for the last couple years. And pages 5 and 6 lay out what the current fees for each filing is. On page 7 begins the fiscal year 2023 analysis. Item number 1, there was an SGF reappropriation of about $15,000 in fiscal year 2022 into 2023 for general operating expenditures. Item number 2, the agency requested a supplemental for cloud-based storage. They are migrating all of their applications and systems from a physical server to a cloud-based environment. Item number 3 is a supplemental request for computer upgrades. So the state's new master lease agreement requires the upgrade of computer equipment, such as monitors and docking stations on a 3-year rotation. At the bottom of page 7 and on the top of, or on page 8, you can see that the governor's recommendation is about $2.8 million. That does include $590,000 for the agency's IT modernization initiative, and more information on that will be provided by the agency. They did receive some spark funding, so you'll hear about that in their testimony. Page 9 lays out the fiscal year 2023 change from actuals. So the fiscal year 2022 actuals compared to fiscal year 2023 revised estimate. On page 10, the fiscal year 2024 analysis can be found. Again, the agency is requesting computer upgrades and cloud-based storage. And there are some other adjustments for employer contributions for group health insurance, slightly offset by recruitment services. The governor concurs with the agency's fiscal year 2024 revised estimate. On page 11, there's some more information on those supplemental enhancement requests for fiscal year 23 and 24 on the computer upgrades and cloud-based storage. And the rest of the document looks at performance-based budgeting measures and different program aspects of the agency. I'm happy to stand for questions.
Representative Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if you don't want to answer this question or you don't have this knowledge, that's great. But I noticed that in 2003, the board was reduced from 5 members to 3 members. And do you have any information why we went to a smaller board when we're trying to get as fair, impartial people on that board as possible? Do you have any history on that?
I do not. I can look into that for you, though.
Any other questions for Sharday? We can, if something comes up during the presentation by the chairperson and Sharday needs to answer it, we'll work with that. So but if there's not any questions, let's go ahead and we'll go on to Kristen, I'm sorry. I keep saying Christine. It's Kristen, isn't it, probably?
Is it? Oh, okay. All right. Is that better? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Hoffman, members of the committee. It's good to see you all this afternoon. I'm Kristen Wheeler, Chair of Board of Tax Appeals, and I wanted to introduce with me, I've got Gabe Bullard. He is our IT manager. I've brought him along today. If you all have any technical questions about the IT-based request that I cannot answer for you, he is my backup. Jody Allen, our executive director, had hoped to join me, but she is ill today and wasn't able to make it. And just briefly, I did want to congratulate one of our employees, Terry Yamashita. Today is her 38th anniversary with the Board of Tax Appeals. And so I don't know if she's watching, but I wanted to thank her for her service. I wanted to focus my discussion today because I know you all have many other things to get to this afternoon on the change package request that we've submitted. And also wanted to give you some information on the Spark funding that we requested. So I'll start with the Spark funding. We found out yesterday after I submitted my written materials to all of you that we were getting $225,000 from the Spark committee. We had requested $521,000. So you'll notice in the written materials, the governor's recommendation on FY 2023's budget mentions $590,000. That was a request that we had made of the Spark committee at some point last year when there was a first round of requests. And in between that first round and the second round of requests after the Finance Council approved distribution of the money, we got more information and were able to revise our request down to 521. But that happened at the same time the governor was making budget recommendations, and that's why there's a difference in that 590 versus 521 number. So we have received 225,000. What I can't tell you right now is how the Spark committee is going to direct us to apply that money. The only notice that we received yesterday was a line that said 225,000. So it will come with some restrictions and directions on how we're to apply that to the various programs that we outlined. I'm not sure what those directives will be at this point. To refresh you, and this is in the written materials that I submitted, which I realize I submitted a volume of them to you. That 521,000 was broken down into 60,000 would have covered an IT consultant to help us oversee and implement the project. 40,000 was dedicated to upgrading our second hearing room to remote hearing capabilities with better microphones, monitors, that kind of thing. 9,000 was dedicated to replace our court recording system, which is what we use instead of having a court reporter in the room. 40,000 is what we had earmarked for a website redevelopment and redesign. and 370,000, so the bulk of it was for upgrade of our document and case management system. So, like I said, it seems like some of that will be funded now by that Spark fund. I'm just not sure which pieces of the puzzle will be covered in the money they've awarded. The $72,000 change package that we've requested for FY23 and 24 deals with two separate requests. And when I was thinking about this last night, I realized I think I did you a disservice in my written materials that I did not adequately address how these requests are interrelated. So even though the board tried to be very mindful and conservative with what we were requesting the legislature to fund through the state general fund, and that's why we put a lot of our requests for IT modernization into the Spark format. The 72,000 is a recurring expense that we know will happen annually no matter what. But there is a relationship between the two. So hopefully I will do a good job of explaining this. And if I get something technically wrong, Mr. Bullard can throw something at me from the back of the room. So the first piece of that 72,000 request, about 44,000, we've earmarked to migrating from a physical server-based environment that we maintain in-house right now to the OITS cloud. This idea of migration is not something that originated with me and my time at the board. It predates me by a few years and has been in the works. It wasn't until I became involved about a year and a half ago and started working on it in earnest, and then we hired Mr. Bullard in the fall, that we were really able to put pen to paper and break down the cost of that migration to the board. Previously, it had just been an idea that migration will just happen, and I think nobody had ever thought about how that was going to be funded or what it was really going to look like for the agency. It's for reasons that I can discuss further if you want more detail. We think it's pretty essential to the agency's continued security and operations to do this migration. But the hang up is our document management system that we're currently using is so outdated that OITS has declared they will not accept us on a migration because they will not assume the risk of operating with that system in place. So we need to, one way or another, we need to replace that document management system. I'm hoping that's something that will be covered in part by the Spark funding request, but that is something that we do need to address before we can migrate to OITS. And so that when I tell you that the Spark request and the continual request that we're making of all of you are related, that is the biggest piece of how those two things are related. The $44,000 piece that would allow us to migrate to OITS, that they have indicated they will not do that until we upgrade our document management system. So the second part of that $72,000 change package is the replacement of computer equipment on a 3 to 4 year rotation. So just to give you some history on this, the agency has never had a line item in its budget to replace its equipment on a routine basis. What has happened in the past is when the agency has had unfilled FTEs for some period of time and has money in its budget, it will wait until the end of that fiscal year, look at the money that it has left and appropriate that for a big purchase of computer equipment. That has worked in the past because there have been long stretches of time where we didn't have several board members at a time, or we had several unfilled FTEs, but that is not the situation that we're in anymore. The other piece of this puzzle that changed is last year, in about mid-22, the state signed a master lease agreement with Dell that changes the situation. So now instead of being able to purchase large batches of equipment outright, we are obligated to lease that equipment on a 3 to 4 year lease term. At least your main pieces of your equipment, your laptops, your processing units, things like keyboards, docking stations, monitors, et cetera. We have to purchase all that peripheral equipment outright. But the major pieces of equipment we lease now, and we have to obtain a special dispensation from the Department of Administration to purchase equipment. So that sort of necessitates a change in the way that we budget for those equipment upgrades now, where we really need a line item in our budget every year to allow us to make sure that when we lease new equipment, that we can continue meeting those lease obligations on a yearly basis. So that $29,000 is what we have calculated to be the minimum if we did not add any numbers of equipment to what we currently have. If we just kept all of our levels steady and we replaced our equipment on a 3 to 4 year rotation, as many professional environments do, that is the annual figure we would need to do that. Yes.
About how many computers is that?
Mr. Bullard?
In every year or
It would be roughly a third of the equipment. Yes, a third to a quarter of the equipment every year. So if I'm doing a decent job of that, making that make sense. So it would not, yeah, we would only handle a third to a quarter of the equipment every year.
Sure.
Then.
Okay. I did want to ask you before,
Yes.
and Sade might have to ask or help me with this. So on the where you've got all this, and I appreciate you've done a great job of breaking all this down for us, where it says a current approved budget. Okay, those numbers, the 2023 is not jiving with what I have as what we approved last year. So I'm trying to see where those numbers come from.
Oh, that's a good question, and I would have to look.
And this is not a budget we do 2 years, right? So the 24 it is a 2-year budget. Is it a 3-year budget? It's not a biannual. So the 24 hasn't been approved at all.
No.
Okay, so I'm just wanting to see where these numbers are coming from. The 2,090,000 or 91 and the 2,101,000 off of this page.
Yes.
I'm just wanting to see where we're making sure we're seeing.
On page 7, after you take into consideration the item number 1 SGF reappropriation, the new legislative approved amount is that $2,090,797.
Oh, it is. Okay. I'm sorry. I was on the wrong page. It's annual. And so then the 2101 is. Where's that number coming from?
I am not sure about that one. The
Okay.
way that we look at our budgets are a little different than the executive branch, so that we have different starting points.
Okay. All right.
Yes, and Chair Hoffman, I wish I could give you a better answer on that on the fly. I know my figures are from a budget analysis that I received from Sean Toombs. So it's possible I received something from the governor's office with slightly different numbers. If you would like me to clarify that after the hearing, I'd be happy to look into it and get
that'd
you.
be fine.
Okay.
I just want to make sure we're looking at the same numbers.
Sure. Well, in terms of the rest of my presentation, I think that really I could stand here and talk to you all for the entirety of your hearing about the IT environment at the board and why we feel that these requests are so essential to the agency's continued operation. But I do not want to overuse my time here. So I would stand for questions to the extent that the committee has any.
Okay, all right, I appreciate it. That's fine. That's what we're here for. So however long it takes. So the 521 is what is the 590 in the budget, um, and you've got 200 and some
We've got,
thousand.
yes, we've got 225, which left a gap of 296,000.
Okay,
And so that would modify, if you took our modification of 521 and then subtracted what we've been awarded by the Spark Committee, that would modify the total request for FY 2023 to be 368,000 on the change package. That would be the 72, well, rounded 72,000 plus the amount that was not covered by Spark funding.
that does not include the 44,000 or the 27,000.
It does.
Oh, it does.
That
That's the
72,
the
that,
total amount.
yes,
All right.
yes, that 72,000 encompasses those two numbers. I just like to break it out so that you understand what that line item would be funding. And I should mention that the Spark request was really designed to govern both the initial implementation of a replacement for the case management and documentation system, as well as 3 years of annual licensing fees. So there, with any solution that we implement at this point in time for a document management system or a case management system, there will be an initial implementation cost and migration to get that installed, and there will be yearly licensing fees. And this is something that right now we don't have large costs associated with our document management system. We're paying a yearly maintenance fee for that. But in all of the solutions that we've explored replacing this with, it simply is the model now when you're purchasing software that it's charged on an annual basis. We really have not been able to find any solution that would have charged us a one-time big number and then we wouldn't have had any other costs. We were trying very hard to find something like that because that would have fit better within the Spark funding model. And it's just really not the way that things work these days. So it's likely with any upgrade that we will be coming back to you all on a yearly basis with requests to cover those yearly licensing fees. And that's something that we tried to at least account for the first 3 years of that with the Spark request.
So
yes.
the 44,060 year, I understand the 28,700.
Yeah.
44,060. You don't plan on having everything migrated in 23, and so it's actually the migration is going to be more like 88,000. Is that what I'm understanding, or because you've got the 44,000 in the budget for 24 also?
Yes. So we had, and that 44,000 would be a recurring yearly cost. That is the cost to have everything that we have currently in BOTA hosted by OITS.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's not
the migration, actually migrating over. That's the lease amount, a lease agreement.
A contractual services agreement.
Okay, that makes
Yes.
more sense. I understand now. All right.
So, and that just assumes that if you took our entire system as it exists on this very day and plopped it into the OITS environment, that is the cost for them to host that. And in the written materials, we have tried to break down the comparison of what we currently spend on IT line items and which of those expenses would be replaced when we migrate to OITS and which we would have to keep.
Where's that at? Why don't we go to that?
That is
important.
On my memorandum. Starting page 6, correct. There is a table under the heading current IT expenditures. I'll give everybody a second to
Gotcha.
get there.
I see it. It's this one here. 6. The graph.
And I can go through these line by line. So the first item, we pay Inc., which is Information Network of Kansas, $3,500 annually to host our website. If we migrate to OITS, they will do the website hosting for us. So that expense would be included. We pay OITS now about $23,000 annually for our data connectivity. So that's our phones, the jacks, the wireless. That expense is going to remain because we would still need phones and that sort of thing. And the next line item as well, about $9,500, where it says phones, that is physically rental of the phones themselves. The next line item under that is about $1,200 annually for Office 365 G1 licenses. That expense would stay. And the same with the next item, about $13,400 for Office 365 G3 licenses. That expense would stay. And the next item, $2,100 for our Zoom licenses and our Zoom room license, that would stay. Currently, we pay about $5,800 a year to Knowledge Lake. That's our document management system. That figure would be replaced by a payment to whatever vendor the board would use to replace its document management system. $11,000 to Law Base may or may not stay as an expense if part of our Spark funding can be allocated to replace our case management system as well as our document management system. That could change. We may be paying a different vendor. We may keep Law Base, but that is the current level of expense. Right now, we pay Century $3,000 a year to rent 2 large copier devices. That expense would stay. We pay the state of Kansas $4,300 a year to rent space in the Eisenhower building for storage of our servers. We would not have to pay that if we migrate to OITS. The next line item, the $900 smart transactional modifier to OITS, that is a surcharge that OITS adds to any service agreement of about 2%, I believe. So any amount that we pay OITS, whether it's rental of phones, data connectivity, licenses, rental of equipment, there is an automatic surcharge for that. The next line item is we paid Global last year, which is a security services firm, a little over $1,100 for Trend Micro and Apex One, which are, I believe, security antivirus software. If we migrate to OITS, the amount that we pay them would cover antivirus and security measures and firewall. And then the last item to SciTech, they provide support for our hearing room equipment. So the microphones, the monitors, everything in the hearing room, as well as the central processing unit that keeps the Zoom room running. That is our extended warranty and support for that equipment. And that expense would stay.
Well, would you like to ask? Yeah, Representative Amex.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Kristen, just so I understand, under your 2024 analysis, your budget $2,173,000. Does that include everything paid out?
That, if I am reading the budget summary correctly, if that $2,173,000 includes the 71,000 change package, then yes, that would include all of that. Mhm.
So we're talking roughly, it depending on what happens to law base, roughly, it's gonna maybe almost double that expense, but maybe not quite. Roughly, I mean,
The
to migrate over per year, it's from what you're paying now to what
Yes,
maybe almost double.
correct.
But you won't have to upgrade those, constantly upgrading those servers and things like that.
So the trade-off is a greater annual cost, probably from state general funding, but less what would happen in the alternative if we stayed self-hosted, I'll say, is that our servers, when they're end of life, would need to be replaced. Our firewall is currently end of life and needs to be replaced. And those things, from my understanding, would cost, we're looking at a cost of $5,000 to $7,000 per server then to replace that. So instead of asking you for a greater amount annually, in 5 to 7 years, I would be saying we need $100,000 right now because I've got 5 servers that need to be replaced and a firewall that's end of life. So it's shifting the model of how the board has historically paid for expenses, and historically it has been very piecemeal, very reactive in terms of waiting until there has been a disaster or a failure of some point to address a situation. And because of that, a lot of solutions have been implemented at the board that do not work well with each other. Some of our systems, we have issues with law-based, doesn't coordinate very well with Office 365, which is O365 is one of the most common programs that exists out there. And those two systems don't talk to each other in our world. And that's because we have so many solutions that have just been the response to one crisis in this year, and then a response to another crisis 2 to 3 years down the road. And there's never been a comprehensive attempt to address the IT infrastructure at the board. That is the basis of such a large request of the Spark Committee, was to create a comprehensive solution at this point in time so that we don't have these little issues affecting our operational efficiency and security concerns.
Sure. Yeah, and that's, I mean, it's kind of the way of technology. I mean, we used to buy Microsoft, Word, and now I mean, even personally, you have to basically pay a subscription every year. It's
Yes.
the way it used to be. So it's kind of the way things are moving.
Even something as basic as Adobe, you
Right.
now have to pay a yearly licensing fee if you want all the bells and whistles of that, as opposed to just being able to see a PDF. And so that's what we're looking at as well, as any solution that we employ at this point in time, because we're looking at IT systems that haven't been significantly upgraded in most cases since 2008. And so when you apply the cost that we're asking for across that many years, it's really not probably a very big investment, but it looks like it right now because for so many years the board hasn't asked for any funding for this type of
Sure.
expense.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah. Representative Riley.
Thank you very much for your presentation. You have just done a great job of drilling down, and I appreciate the job you did of answering our questions, preliminary questions that knocked a lot of questions off the top there. So do you have any, going back, do you have any knowledge of why we went to 3 instead of 5 on the board?
I don't, Representative Riley. I wish I did, and I wish Ms. Allen would have been here. She may have been able to answer that, or frankly, Ms. Yamashita, who's been there for 38 years, may know. I don't. I will look into that and get back to you. I personally don't have that knowledge.
And then my second question just was simply, I know being on the modernization committee, so much of our stuff is going to the cloud. And so therefore, just want to make sure that we would get some kind of reports that make sure that those cloud data information is not going overseas, that it's staying secure. So I don't know that we need to have some kind of a committee that keeps track of that, or you yourself keep track of that you know your data is safe every quarter, that kind of thing. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And to address that point, I think that's one reason that we have looked into going to OITS specifically, is that they would have control then over where our storage solutions are and what the backup solutions are, rather than, we could choose to use a third-party vendor of some kind that offered cloud storage solutions, and we could choose to continue hosting our own servers and keeping all of that in-house, but we would likely have less control than over where our data is being stored, and less knowledge. And so I presume then that OITS, being under the umbrella of the Department of Admin, has those safeguards in place already to ensure that state data is maintained in a safe way. And they would take care then of ensuring that all the appropriate security patches were done on a timely fashion, and that antivirus was maintained yearly, which is not something that we currently have when we're hosting in-house.
Right. And just for everyone's information, I'm OITS, when they started this migration to servers, and initially it was going to be, I believe, in Pennsylvania. I can't remember exactly where the data center was going to be, and that was part of the agreement. Was no, we don't want our Kansas information out of state. So then they built the facility in Overland Park. I believe it's in Overland Park or Olathe, one or the other. Yeah, and so they've taken really good care of that to make sure that as we've moved all of the services of the state over into this more cloud based, that it's protected, backed up in separate places, but the data is staying in the state. So that's very important.
I will add, Representative Hoffman, if I could, it's a concern for us at this point, having servers hosted in-house, that it is a physical location in Eisenhower. And if anything were to happen to that building or to our equipment in that building, that puts the agency at tremendous risk, versus having the information stored in a cloud where nothing can happen to it physically. That is one concern that we have, is that our physical storage solution in Eisenhower right now is not the best that it could be.
I agree. I agree. Committee, just for I was talking to Representative Amix, and just to make sure everybody understands. So if you look on page 7 of the budget analysis, and you'll see there that the 44,060 and then the 27,800 is a line item. If you go then to page 10 for the 2024 analysis, you'll see that it's got those same line items, but they're marked out, or they're just dashes. That is because that 44,000 and that 27,000 is actually already in the agency revised estimate at the very top. So it's already in there, but it doesn't show up in 24. Now, and that's the reason why I was asking if it was something that happened every year. If like the enhancement number 1, if that was going to be just in 23, then you would have seen in 24 a negative number under that agency request where it says enhancements, computer equipment. You would have seen the negative, what is it, 44,000 right there, to show that was no longer in that budget. So just to kind of explain how that all works, so that you don't, because you'll see the 99,259 is the same as the total in their agency request on page 7 under the 23 analysis. So I just want to make sure everybody understood how that all works, because you'll see that a lot. There's going to be some numbers kind of move back and forth. It takes just a little bit to understand how all that works. So Yeah, Representative Pickard.
What are spark funds?
That's a good question. Yeah, I might just, Martin, would you like to answer that a little bit for us?
Yes, I'll give you a high overview. So Spark is a group of legislators and other people that were tasked to designate where the funds from ARPA and the federal government for the pandemic. So they made recommendations to State Finance Council, and those monies were put into big pots and then designated for certain purposes, and then one of those purposes was for IT. Agencies had to make submissions in this current one, which she's referencing, and then those awards were just announced. And if I'm wrong in this, feel free to step in. But very high level, it's federal funds that came through the state and then were allocated to specific projects.
So there, it's money that Kansas already has, and then we are allocating it out. Is that
That is correct.
Okay.
Is money that Kansas from federal level, and then we allocate it.
Yeah, there was like 3 different allocations. You know, the federal government passed 3 different bills, you know, throughout the 2021. And this is kind of just really the last of all of that money, basically. Yeah, it's one-time money, and that's the reason why the task was to use it for things that were going to be basically a one-time expense. We did not want it to be used for salaries and, you know, things like that would then make us on the hook for something. But for something like this, it's perfect because it's, you know, it's something that I mean, just a high level and large. The work, or at least part of what's going on with the docking building, that's federal Spark money. The new lab that's being built is federal Spark money. So it's those sort of things. So that's where that is. Yes, Representative Robinson.
So as the chairman of this committee, would you think that the presentation provided was as good point as I'm interpreting, or am I incorrect?
Nope, you did. You're right. It's very, very good presentation. I'm very impressed with answering the questions and giving us a detail of what you know, what it just sometimes takes us a little bit to get down to where we need. Not, yeah, very good presentation.
Yeah, Representative Pickard, I will add to your point. That's request that we made of the Spark Committee. It will come with some restrictions on how we spend that money. It has to be spent by a certain date. I believe they may put some restrictions on what specific projects we can allocate that money to, and I have not seen those documents yet from them. I will add that for whatever reason, the previous chair of the board before me chose not to request federal relief funds at any point prior to this. So this was our first chance and request for money of that nature. And we tried very hard to make all of our requests fit within that kind of one-time spend model and just could not avoid the idea of those annual licensing fees being applicable to a lot of what we need.
Yeah, but I think you probably will be able to find where to spend the 225,000, then the annual expense we can probably will take care of in the state general fund.
I can guarantee you we will put the money to very good use.
I'm sure you will. All right. Any other questions, Christine, before we let her go? All right. Oh, yeah, Sade, go ahead. Sorry.
It's not a question, but just a note, the fiscal year 2024 that you asked about on the enhancement requests document, that number is a bit off because the enhancements are not included in there. So that's primarily what you see missing from that amount. They're not included in that 2.1 million on that document.
Oh, on the document, that they are on the analysis.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. Okay, well, I think we have a pretty good idea of your needs and appreciate if just one last chance. Any questions before we let the Board of Tax Appeal go? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your time. And again, I'm always happy to answer any questions that you all might have if anything comes up after this. Thank you.
All right, Sade. Next.
Okay, we're going to move on to the Kansas Department of Revenue. Again, similar format with the first 3 pages being a budget overview. Pages 4 and 5 are fee fund analyses of the Division of Vehicles Operating Fund and the Electronic Databases Fee Fund. And the fiscal year 2023 analysis begins on page 6. The item number 1 is an SGF reappropriation of about $25,738 from fiscal year 2022 into fiscal year 2023. Item number 2 is the Special County Mineral Production Tax Fund, which is an addition of $2.6 million to reflect the consensus revenue estimates. Item number 3 is an addition of about $867,000 for salaries and wages expenditures, including 8 new FTE positions within the Division of Taxation. Item number 4 is software for the Division of Taxation, totaling about $482,000. Item number 5 on page 7 is the deletion of $400,000 in preparation and anticipation of a fiscal year 2024 enhancement request that I will discuss in a moment. And item 6 is also in anticipation of the fiscal year 2024 enhancement requests by deleting about $523,000. The governor concurs with the agency's fiscal year 2023 revised estimate.
Just want to make sure the 400,000 and the 523. So that was, we approved that last year. Is that? And okay, that's what I was thinking. So that was approved and we're taking it out because we're moving it to 24. Yeah, okay.
On page 9, you will find the fiscal year 2024 analysis. The agency's enhancement request item number 1 for license plate replacement costs totaling $25.3 million. You can find additional information on that request on page 11, but we will get to the governor's recommendation for that in a moment. Item number 2 is the Special County Mineral Production Tax Fund, again to adjust for consensus revenue estimates. Item number 3 is the addition of $642,000 for salaries and wages. Item number 4 is the deletion of $425,000 for that taxation software. And item number 5 is a deletion of $132,000 miscellaneous items. The governor's recommendation recommends $126.3 million. The governor did not recommend $25.3 million. The governor recommends transferring $12.6 million from the state highway fund to the agency for replacing all embossed license plates, meaning those that are not digitally produced. Additionally, the governor recommends that federal ARPA funds be used if available. And pages 12 through the rest of the document go out into the programs in a little bit more detail.
Okay. So the 641,000, is that part of the 5%? Is that the 5% salary?
That is not.
That's not? Okay. What is that?
Primarily for group health insurance for all of the employees and seeing an increase in that for 1,057 FTE.
Okay. So so where is the 5% increase? Are they not, they weren't eligible for it?
It's not included in the budget. That would be a separate section of the bill, so it's not included in our budget analyses.
Oh, okay. So you didn't include any of the 5% in any of the budget analysis. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Okay, that's fine. Any questions for Sharday? Okay, I don't think so. Be on hold just in case. All right. All right, we've got Chris Holm here. Welcome, Chris. Chief Financial Officer with the Department of Revenue. Welcome.
Thank you. Am I on? Yeah, I'm on. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome back to the committee. Good to see. Yeah, I know it has. It's good to see you back again. My name is Chris Holm, and I am the Chief Financial Officer at the Department of Revenue. Thank you for the opportunity to provide information on our budget request for fiscal year 23 and 24. I know that there's several new committee members this year, so I just wanted to kind of go over our structure a little bit and what we do. The mission of the Kansas Department of Revenue is to collect taxes and fees, administer Kansas tax laws, issue a variety of licenses, and provide assistance to Kansas citizens and units of government. We're made up of 6 programs. Our administrative program is the Office of the Secretary, and we provide administrative support for agency operations, including the Secretary's office, also my unit, the Office of Financial Management. We handle the budget, and also my revenue accounting group, all of the receipts that come into the state. It's about $13 billion that came in FY22. Our team splits that out to the local units of government and also other state agencies as well. We also have in our administrative Office of the Secretary, we have our Policy and Research Division. So if you submit a fiscal note or want to make a tax change or something like that, that group is very valuable, and they will create the fiscal note for you. Also, our Legal Services Division as well, which is our group of attorneys that handle all of the agency legal matters, including appeals for both taxes and also driver's license hearings as well. Our Aid to Local Governments program is strictly a pass-through program, and what that is we collect various taxes and fees that get split out to local units of government. So that program really fluctuates from year to year because we go off of the consensus revenue estimates to see so that can really change from the time that the budget is approved. From the time that I do the budget in the late summer, I have another consensus revenue estimate that I can use, so I can better refine those for the current and upcoming fiscal year. Our ABC division regulates and all the phases of manufacturing, distribution, sale, and possession of alcohol in the state. We have over 9,000 licensees. The Division of Taxation administers all of our state taxes, including account management, consumer education, delinquent tax recovery, and the processing of incoming tax returns, both electronically and by regular mail, and cigarette and tobacco enforcement activities. Our Property Valuation Division provides supervision for the Kansas property tax program and system, and the Division of Vehicles administers laws relating to vehicle titling and registration, also dealer licensing, and the issuance and maintenance and renewal of driver's license and identification cards. The majority of our expenditures at KDOR are for salaries and wages. In FY22, 58% of our actual expenditures are employee wages and benefit costs, and then contractual services make up about 75% of the remaining. For FY23 and 24, the governor recommends 1,057.15 positions, which includes 133.5 classified and 869 unclassified positions. And the reason that the governor's recommendation is different from what was approved in FY23 is when the food sales tax bill was passed last year. It was put in with a bunch of other bills, and we had a request for 8 FTEs to help administer that, and that somehow got lost when it all got put together. So we ate the cost for it this year because we weren't able to get the employees on board until the fall anyway, but have requested funding for it going forward into FY24. I checked yesterday, and as of the most current pay period, we have about 70 vacancies at the department that we're actually recruiting for currently. The way that KDOR is funded is through a state general fund. Also, that's about 10 to 15% of our budget. And then a transfer from the state highway fund to our division of vehicles operating fund, that's about 50% or so. And then we have a combination of other fee funds, including the photo fee fund, which is the part of the fee that you pay when you go to get your license renewed. There's an $8 fee to get to help produce the credential, and that goes into this fee fund, which we pay the vendor. And then we have the electronic database fee fund, which is for vehicle records, property records, those type of things that we provide. And then we have just various other fee funds as well that we use. We did have one enhancement request, which Sharday talked about, which I'll come back to when we get to FY24. But let's go to FY23 on page 5. What I like to do for the committee each year is go through and list what was approved last year and then what the governor recommends for our revised estimate this year, and just kind of give you a brief breakdown by program of the differences and what has happened since the budget was approved last year. A lot of what we do is we try really hard and strive to maintain to keep the budget flat every year if at all possible. And the reason that it's a little bit higher this year is mainly because of that aid to local governments. Because of the oil and gas estimates, I increased our aid to local governments, which is just the pass-through fund, by about 2.6 million. And then a lot of it is just shuffling around to from one program to another to help them fit their budget needs. And the other part of that I had mentioned earlier about the 8 FTE, that's the 500,000 of that 3.2 million is the addition of those 8 FTE positions and some IT costs for the food sales tax bill. Moving ahead to fiscal year 24, we did turn in a budget request of 138 million, which included an enhancement request for a license plate replacement for all standard embossed license plates. Now, starting in 2018, the agency started to produce license plates digitally, which you might notice the difference between an embossed one and a digital produced one. It used to be the embossed, you would go into the county treasurer, they'd hand you a plate right there. That was an embossed plate. And in 2018, we switched to the digitally produced license plates, which are produced on demand, which help reduce our waste. Because a lot of times, especially with the specialty plates, we would overproduce and we would have to we had a lot of scrap left over. So this was a way to make that process more efficient. And so what happens is you wait about 1 or 2 weeks and then you receive your license plate in the mail after you've gone to the county treasurer's office. So there's embossed license plates on the road right now. We determined at the time that we did the budget that a complete replacement of all license plates, so if we decided to change the design or something like that, a complete replacement would be about $25.2 million. Then we came back and said, when the governor came back with her recommendation, she recommended that we use about 12.625 million, which that would cover all of the embossed plates. So at the time, we thought that it would be about half the cost just to replace those plates. And then I did get, as of the end of last month, I got an updated cost from our division of vehicles, and they have estimated now that the cost is 9.75 million to replace those embossed plates. And then also the governor's recommendation, she recommended that we try to seek federal funding to help support this. And I just did receive word yesterday, much like the agency before me, that we were awarded $6 million of the Spark money to help fund this license plate replacement. And then just after that, I just have a budget history that just kind of goes over the last 5 fiscal years, kind of where our budget's been, and just the makeup of the state general fund and the other fee funds. So with that, I will stand for questions.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Okay, so the 12.6 million is now 9.7 million, right?
Right.
Okay, and then you got 6 million, and it was specifically for that purpose.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yes,
That
I
was,
know. It was the third time that we had gone through the process, and I guess third time's a charm. So
Yes. So okay. All right. So basically around three and a quarter million short.
right, right. And what we were wanting to do is to use of the 12.625, take out the 6 of the federal fund, and then put the rest into the license plate replacement fund, which the governor has created as a new fund. And then as the plates that we issued in 2018 reached the 5-year useful life, we could potentially replace those as well. So we do
Okay,
like
so
fractions every
You're still
year.
wanting the whole 12 million is what you're saying.
I really want 6 from you, but 6 from the feds and 6 from you.
That's right. Okay. I understand what you're wanting. So what if the 2018 ones, if we replace them in 5 years, you're estimating that would be another 6 million is what you're saying.
No,
Okay.
no. So it would cost to replace all the embossed plates right now would be 9.75 million.
Okay.
So then we would take the other 3 and put it into that license plate replacement fund. And then as plates start to reach their useful life or go past their useful life, we would use that fund to fund the replacement as they're
needed.
Yeah.
So what's the lifetime on those digital plates? I mean, do they?
There's a reflectivity sheet on there, which helps law enforcement be able to see your plate at night and things like that. And that has a 5-year useful life before it starts to become deteriorated, and then just normal wear and tear on the plates as well.
So on the 400,000 and the 25,000 that's coming off of 2023, it says in yours that it's because of decreased production costs. Now, is that because you didn't print as many as you thought?
Right.
Okay, so that doesn't have anything to do necessarily with the replacement.
No, in my mind, they're independent.
Okay, so that
things.
was because you didn't print as many as you were
Right,
thinking.
right, right.
Okay. And how does that work with the vanity license plates? So do we still have some vanity license plates out there that are embossed?
I believe that all the personalized ones were, I call them personalized, but the
Or vanity
plates, yeah, I believe that all those were replaced at once a couple of years ago, but I can find out for sure.
All right. Okay. So if I remember rightly, isn't there a $7 charge for the plate?
Yes, part of that is for the plate production cost, and part of it's for the postage to mail it.
But we're required under statute, I just see, to replace one a year. But they'll still get charged the $7?
No.
Okay. All right. That's
what this fund does is this picks up the cost to replace all those embossed plates.
Okay. Any other questions? Representative Riley.
Thanks for your presentation. when you get a chance, could you go back through the questions? I think several of my questions were on that preliminary question database that was mailed out to you. I think that's right, isn't it, Susan? Everybody sent that. Okay, so when you get a chance, could you answer some of those questions that are off those?
Sure. I apologize. I got the memo, but I thought it was just potential questions that you could ask, and a lot of them went to boards and commissions and not me. So
Well, it was meant to be for everybody, so you could pick out the ones that did apply to you. You know, the things like uh, cars, inspectors, all that kind of stuff. You have such a broad amount of offices that you're overseeing. You know, property valuation, all that kind of stuff. So, just to start off, a general question while we were just talking about plates. So, as we go to these new plates, uh, what is your feedback been as far as with the highway patrol and the different patrol, as far as them being able to, and the Turnpike Authority being able to read those plates easily?
I haven't really heard any feedback from the Turnpike, but I do know I did talk with our director of vehicles this afternoon, and he told me that he's spoken with some law enforcement, and they're very supportive and would come and speak in favor of it.
Okay, so it's still able to read them well, even though, I mean, they go through mud and it doesn't make any difference one way or another. They still get them. So some of those questions were things like, you know, so where are you located? Where, how many square feet are you taking up? How do you pay for that? What are your things like your computers? How many vehicles do you have? I think you just mentioned the difference on your shrinkage between what you're asking for uh, FTEs and what you're actually 70 short, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So that's a big chunk of full-time people that are not filling in your positions. So is that 70 across the board because you have so many different departments underneath you, or where are those 70 filling out?
Yeah, I can send you. I just didn't bring it with me today, but I have a breakdown by division, which where the vacancies are located at, and I can send that as soon as I leave this meeting today. I believe that a majority of them are in the taxation division and also the driver services for our driver's license examiners.
Well, so uh, one of those examples is your alcohol and beverage area, where you have people that are coming out and doing fake buys, or what is the proper word for that? They're doing buys to try to talk someone into
We call them controlled buys.
control buys. Yes. And so those are vehicles that your folks are using to go out and do that. Is that part of those vehicles?
Yeah, the one that when you're talking about the individuals that go out and do the controlled buys, those are separate employees. Those aren't full-time employees. Those are part-time that come on an as-needed basis because they're underage.
And that's also true of the tobacco buys
Correct.
and all
Correct.
that kind of thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we have a whole roster of those.
And so looking at your numbers, I was looking at your goals on some of those percentages, and it looks like some of your goals, like on, I think was tobacco was like 87%. Was that the number I was looking at? It seems like, I guess my comment on that, it seems like over years and years, whether it's alcohol or whether it's tobacco, people are doing these buys. It's unbelievable that that number isn't like 99%, that people continue to allow underage people to buy alcohol and tobacco. I mean, what are we doing wrong here that we're not at 99%? Are you just really, really sneaky with your people? And why are all our licensees not doing better? Any ideas?
Yeah, and that would be a great question for the director of AVC. I can definitely, bring her over here if you'd like more information. I'm just the budget guy, so I don't have a whole lot of knowledge. Yeah.
The same thing. I just don't understand. I mean, we've been doing this for years and we still have very, what I would consider low percentages.
If I could answer all of your questions, I would, but there's so many different programs that we have doing so many different things. It's hard to know everything.
But I would appreciate you looking over those
Yeah.
questions and maybe send them back to us.
Mhm.
Yeah, and if you could maybe have the director maybe reach out.
Sure, I can do that.
Okay. Representative Turk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Will you do me a favor and go to aid to local governments line and just break down for me the increase there? You mentioned it briefly about oil, gas, something or other.
Yes.
If you explain that to me,
Sure.
I must have missed that
Sure.
last year. Yeah, it'd be page 5. Revised budget comparison.
Okay, so the aid to local governments, what they do is they provide for the distribution of certain state collected taxes and fees to local units of government. These are like sand royalty fees. It's fees collected from the sale of full privilege motor vehicle dealer license tags, mineral production, which is your oil, coal, and gas, and also penalties imposed for non-payment of taxes on marijuana and other controlled substances. The sand royalty plate fund, what happens to that is of the 15 cents a ton that are paid by entities that take sand, gravel, or minerals, 75% of that is deposited into the state water fund. And then the other third is, or the other, I'm sorry, 25%, the other fourth, 2/3 of that is distributed back to the counties. In the special mineral production fund, those are the excise taxes imposed on the severance and production of coal, oil, and gas. The current rate is 8% of the gross value of oil or gas per $1 per ton of coal produced. 7% is deposited into this fund and distributed back to the county where the action took place, and the remainder is credited to the state general fund. And then there's the county drug tax fund, which is also in that as well. And those are dealers violating the tax provisions with controlled substances must pay delinquent taxes and 100% penalty. And 25% of all of those monies collected go to the state general fund, and the other 75% goes to the entity whose law enforcement agency conducted the investigation. And then it also includes the taxpayer notification cost fund, which we just started this year. And that was with the revenue neutral rate mailings. We send reimbursements to county clerks for postage and printing related to that bill, which requires the county clerks to notify by mail each taxpayer with property with one of those revenue neutral rate notices and the time and location of public hearings.
So just to be clear, this is to everybody. I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. So this is a pass through only, so that we've gotten more money, so that you have more money, and now you disseminate more money.
Yeah, this essentially we have to include it in our budget, but it comes into us, we send it back out.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so when we did 23, we didn't we've had a certain amount of money, and then what's come in has been more, and so they have to have authority to be able to send it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I use since I do the budget in the end of the summer, I use the May consensus revenue, which is the best information that I have, and that changes several times as we go along.
Do you have an idea the reimbursement to the clerks? How much was that? Do you know?
We paid 1.1 million,
Okay.
And we had 9 counties that did not seek reimbursement.
And that you don't have that included in the 24, probably, right?
Yeah, it is, because it was for calendar year 23 and 24.
Oh, it was for calendar year 23 and 24.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. I do have a question on so the motor vehicle records fee. My understanding is it's increased a lot over the last 12 years or so. It's almost doubled. from around $8 to over $16 now. Or over, yes, over $16. Do you have a reason why that has increased so much?
That record fee hadn't changed for several years. And when we did a cost comparison of where we were at in relationship to other states, we were towards the bottom. And in order to, because the cost of maintaining that information has obviously gone up over time, so is the cost to produce those records. And so that's why we increased the cost of those records.
So now we're pretty high though, compared, because my understanding is Colorado is like $2 and Missouri's $2.50 and Nebraska's $4. Now Oklahoma is 27, I think. So I'd like to have a little more information on that.
Okay.
I know that impacts, especially your smaller ones that are the large. Now, my understanding too is that the large batches get a discount. Is that correct?
Yes.
How big do they have to get that discount?
I don't know the answer to that, but I can get that for you.
If we could get more information on that whole thing, I would appreciate it.
Sure.
If these motor vehicle records are basically our records. So the Department of Revenue has a record of all the tickets that you've ever gotten, Representative Smith, and just using it for example, but he's going to defend himself. And so when you apply for insurance or things like that, those companies will then ask for those records in order to be able to see where your rating is, and those costs have gone up in asking for that. So that's what. But go ahead. You had a question too.
Page 5, just out of curiosity, at the top of the page, production cost 13.85 million, mailing costs 11.40 million.
Mm-hmm.
We don't pass that mailing cost on to the buyer, that plate.
Well, they pay the title and registration fee when they go to their county treasurer, but then we pay. That's included in part of the fee that we get back.
So actually, they are paying it then.
In essence, yes.
Most of the time when I go, they hand it to me. There's no mailing. Are there that many that are mailed out?
In 2018, all of them are that way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we went from the stamp plates, the metal stamp plates, to now it's a metal plate still, but it's a digitally, I don't know, printed somehow on there, and so now they're mailed to you as you buy them, and that allows us not to have the courthouses no longer have plates in storage. You just get them mailed to you. So I just want to go just make sure before if we do the 9 million or the 6 million or 12, however we finally land, there won't, and you do replace all the embossed ones, there won't be any cost to the $7 will not be applied.
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Is that about $7 per plate is what you figured for that 9 million? Is that what it is? Or
yeah, there's the production fee and the mailing fee, and I think it's like $4.50 and $2.50 to mail or something like that. I'd have to look at the exact breakdown.
That's kind of what you're using. Then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, Representative Riley.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So yesterday I had a discussion over in transportation. So the fees that the county receives for electronic vehicles, let's say it's $30 for a regular car and $45 for a pickup and $75 for a hybrid and $100 for a full electric vehicle. That amount of money gets into your department, and then where do you transfer that to?
Most of it goes to the state highway fund.
Directly? All of it? 100%?
I'd have to look at the breakdown for it, but I can get that for you.
I think that's where the question was yesterday, of whether all that money went to KDOT or not.
I know a majority of it does, but I can't say 100% of it does. So,
That was a little discussion point that we had yesterday. And then the second point, this kind of comes from my local county treasurer. And that is, it feels like, or they feel like, that the amount of reimbursement that they're getting for wages to cover the employees that are doing the license plate registration fees, all that kind of stuff that they're working for, they're not getting high enough registration income. And therefore, a lot of that, especially just in that department, is having to be paid by the county commissioners rather than all that money is going to the state, but the state's not paying enough of their wages. So do you have input on that?
no, I do not. That's kind of out of my realm, and I don't want to speak out of turn.
Imagine that's probably us. We probably have set those.
Yeah, they are
those
set
amounts.
statutorily.
Yeah. So it's us, and we could have that looked at. You might, if you would, or we could have Charday, if you could check on those breakdowns and what's in statute and what's not of those fees. Yeah, that are being shared with the county.
I do have a cheat sheet. That,
Do you?
Yes,
Okay.
I do. I believe in my
You can
files
share
in
it
my
with
office.
Charday,
Yes,
then.
I'll send it to her.
Yeah. Okay. And then what of that is, I assume almost all of it is been put in statute. But look, yeah, it would take us doing either a change in the legislation or a proviso, the other. So, all right. Any other questions? Oh, yeah, Representative Robinson.
Thank you. You said that you have like 70 openings. During the presentation, was saying all these openings. So, how can we get the information to refer it's going through positions that
Yeah, what we've done to try to recruit is we go to a lot of job fairs, we go to a lot of college career fairs and things like that to try to recruit. I feel like that, when we bring 3 on, 4 leave, I mean, it just is the way that the world is working right now. So we're trying our best though, and using all the resources that we can to help recruit.
That does bring up one question on so the governor, in the governor's budget, there's a 5% increase. And then there's also a market increase for some employees. Do you know, are some of your employees part of that market increase also?
I haven't seen the market increase,
Okay.
but we did just do some for our channel management staff, which is the staff that handles the mail, and then also the driver's license examiners to help bring them up to market.
You did do that internally?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And Charday, maybe either you could or you guys could work together, maybe get us that information. So, okay, thank you. All right. Any other questions? Yeah, Representative Amix.
Chair, make this quick. In your budget, do we have anything there that was paid with one-time money through federal programs or such that are requiring long-term or any additional?
Representative, not that I'm aware of. We knew that those were one-time money, and that's how we spend it.
Thank you.
And then again, one last thing, I saw on the taxation software, we are doing an upgrade of that, then it's going to be $57 or $57,000 after that. Do you have other programs that are, we did a huge change in the driver's license program a few years ago. Do you have other projects that you're looking at in the next, say, 2 or 3 years?
I don't believe so. Every time I say that I'm done, then another one crops up. But I believe that this will get us to where we want to be. Like, this is one of the final ones that we were wanting to replace for right now.
Okay, because I know that at one time, I think it was the tax software. We were either in a contract or getting ready to go into a contract. And so this 425,000 fixes that. I'm trying to remember. It's been a couple of years ago. It was kind of a little bit of a controversial contract.
Yeah, that's two separate things.
Okay.
This is for our quality assurance and design software. So when we do legislative, like when you make legislative tax changes, the upgrade to this software will help us do our testing and all of our quality assurance to make sure that things are processing and stuff. The situation with this software is we've had it for years and years and years, and it's no longer supported by the vendor.
Right. The other is what's the status of that other then?
We went back to the way that it was.
Okay.
We started and stopped and went back.
And that software is still fine?
Yes. Yes.
Good. Okay. All right. Good deal. All right. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate
Thank you very much.
Yeah, appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
All right, committee, we made it through the first two. Now, the only thing is, I think tomorrow we have to make recommendations for these two. So, yeah, go ahead, Martin.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just want to let the committee know that we do have some data visualization that went live today on the KLRD website. So on the KLRD website, if you're technologically inclined, on the right side, you should see tabs on the most requested publications. There's a budget data visualization link there. If you click on that link, and I apologize for the people online who can't see this, but feel free to go to the ks.gov website. You will come to a splash page there. In the top line there, if you use your quick filters, and for those taking notes, you can actually break down by agency, program, fund, and functions of government. This data is pulled from the agency's submission as well as the governor's recommendations. So very similar to what our budget analysis does. You can look more in depth online in some data visualization and nice colors. That is correct.
Okay. Yeah, I knew that was, I remember you saying something about that was getting close to being. Trying to find, oh, here it is. Okay, so tomorrow we will have the report outs of the Office of Attorney General and the Kansas Insurance Department, and then Office of, no, that's appropriations. I know that doesn't sound right, does it? Okay, go ahead, Martin. I picked up the wrong one.
No, that's fine. So tomorrow, for Thursday, we have recommendations for the two agencies that you heard today, and then you'll have hearings from the lottery, racing and gaming, and the dental board.
All right. Jeez, I'm still recovering from last night. That's you, yeah. Representative Pickard.
Okay, so then tomorrow, do we have more discussion from the ones we heard today? I mean, will we have information come to us that we requested or?
Right. So hopefully the information that we've, and I apologize that this is so quick. It's just the way we have to do it because of the, I have to report these out Tuesday, so we have to give time. So hopefully the information that we've asked for, they can get to us sometime tomorrow. And so that we'll have that in front of us. And then we'll just have a discussion on, you know, I will probably have some things that I'll probably go through the vice chair of, you know, certain ideas, you know, that, hey, we want to do this. We'll discuss them, and then it'll just be an open, just like any other committee where you can bring an amendment. So if you've seen something in there and say, hey, I think they ought to get $1 million for something, then you bring the amendment to add that $1 million and work with Charday or Martin, and they will help you find the right place to put that. Right, it is recommendation. That's true. So,
So wording,
right, any wording? Yes. Yeah, so what we're putting together is a report for appropriations. So if, if we want to, like, say BODA, if we want to say, we appreciate um, their report, I'm not sure we want to do that, but I'm just saying that would be something. We would put that in, and then when I report it out to appropriations, that would be one of the light items that says our committee was, blown away by their report, and we give them kudos. So, yeah, Representative Amix.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, like other budget committees, we can add money, we can subtract money.
Yep. Add money, subtract money, or give comment. Exactly right. Yep. Yep. Representative Riley.
and in addition to that, for example, the shrinkage that we heard today, if you have a recommendation on that 70 FTE shrinkage and you had a recommendation, bring that forward at that time too. So if you have some concerns about anything on their budget, that it's all out there. So thank you.
And this will, this may or may not be the last time we would see these budgets. Most likely it is, as far as this committee, but it will certainly not be the last time it's looked at. So, once we get through the committees, if even after I've reported out to appropriations, and frankly, appropriations, and I've seen this happen many times, appropriations could say, we don't like anything your committee did, and we're going to change it all. And if there's enough votes, they'll do that. I mean, my job is to defend what we've done, and but that will also be looked at several other times. I mean, so if we have some, later on, once we've got through our budgets and we decide we want some more information on something, we could have some informational hearings. Then we could come back and we could say, well, we think this ought to, as a committee, we think this ought to be changed. Then I would take that to appropriations when we do the final budget put together later on towards the end of March. So Representative Pickard.
Okay, so we've been looking at fiscal year 2023 and 2024. Will we vote on both?
Correct.
So the rest of the year is for 23 till
July.
Till July, okay. And then for next year, and then they have to go through that again next year. Right?
Exactly.
It's not for 2 years, okay.
Right. Yeah. Now some of them are 2-year budget, so we'll do 25 also.
Okay.
But we'll again look at those again next year. It's just kind of a way to give them a little bit of a. At one time, we were actually doing a 2-year budget for all agencies, but the current governor went back to a 1-year budget for most of the agencies. Representative Riley.
And I don't want to get ahead of the ship here, but going back to your question, a lot of times at the end of the year in appropriations, there's an omnibus amount that we don't know about at this point. Even at now, we could say, we think you should hold off with your current budget now, but we're good with putting an extra $1 million on that if there's money available at omnibus. That makes sense. So, saying, like, if we really do have extra money later on, this is a good program, but we want you to wait till then to get that money.
Yeah, our attempt will be to get a budget passed out before we leave in April. Hopefully, doesn't always happen, but will be the attempt. And then there'll be another budget. There'll be the omnibus budget that we will work on, and it'll have some changes in it because of the consensus revenue that will come in while we're on break in April. And they'll redo that consensus revenue. There may be some changes that come up there that will then prompt us to have to run another budget to kind of make some changes. And I'm sorry. Yes, and policy bills. So if we pass something that's going to spend money, that bill goes all the way through, the governor signs it, then we'll have to we'll have to appropriate that money for it, or not, depending on, wouldn't be the first time we passed something and then didn't appropriate the money for it, so. But that's the way it's supposed to work. All right, we'll get through it. It'll, I think once we get through a couple of them, you'll understand. You'll be pros at it here before long. These two, I think, will be fairly easy. So, anyway, any other questions? Not yet. I will just say there's a possibility that Friday we will have our meeting earlier than 3:30. We're still working on it. You're okay with it? Okay, well then if you're okay with it, that was our last. So Friday, so you don't have to wait all day, we're going to have our meeting at 10:30. Is that what we decided, or 10? Okay, what I'm trying to do is get us out of here early on Friday. There's only two committees meeting that day. We're one of them, and so the other one is the ag budget. So, but they are a little earlier in the day. But so 11 o'clock on Friday in this room instead of the 3:30. We'll send that out to everybody, but that's what the plan will be. But tomorrow will be at 3:30 here in this room. 11 o'clock Friday. Yeah. Okay.